The shir today is dedicated in the schus of the birthday of Chana Bas Liba, Shnas Tatzlacha, Begashmius, Uberuchnius. So we begin today the Gemara on Daf Ayin Daled Amud Beis, Tana Rabbanon, 5 lines from the bottom of the Amud. Tana Rabbanon, we learned in the Braise, Ben Teisha Shonim V'yoyim Echad. A child that's from the age 9 and up, which is a ger Amayni Umayavi, a ger from the nation of Ammon and Moav, which are usher to marry into Klal Yisrael forever, even after the Gerus, or a Mitzri v'Adaimi, or the Mitzri and Adaimi in the first 3 generations, or a Kuti, which is from the ones that were Megayer that are not good, that the Gerus is not accepted, and they also can't marry into Klal Yisrael, or V'Nosen, or V'Cholol, or Mamzer. These are also all psulim. Shabo ala Kehenes, that any of these men that had a relation with a Kehenes, or Val Alavia, or Levi, or Val Bas Yisrael, or Bas Yisrael. Paslua, so she becomes pasul. Now, what does she become pasul for? If she's a Bas Yisrael, she becomes pasul to marry a Kohen. Anyone that has a relation with someone that's pasul, it passes her now to have a relation with a Kohen. She can't get married to a Kohen. Or if she's a Kehenes and she was allowed to eat Truma up until this point, it passes her from eating Truma. The Gemara is soon going to bring the psukim for this. Rabbi Yossi says, no, the rule about this is a bit different. Kol shezare pasol, if a woman has a relation with someone that the children from that relation would be pasol, then pasol. That pasels her from marrying a kohen. But v'chol she'ein zare pasol, if the children would not be pasol, ein a pasol. That would not pasel her from marrying a kohen. Gemara will explain the difference between Rabbi Yossi and the Tanakama. A third opinion, what the rule here is, what kind of relation to a apostle passes her to marry a kohen, or from Truma. As long as if a girl would be born from this relation, this girl would be mutter to a kohen, then the woman herself, if she is an almana from this man that she was married to, she would be mutter to marry a kohen as well. If the daughter is possible to marry a kohen, then you can't marry this woman herself that had a relation with this man. Okay, so the Gemara is now going to explain the source of all of this and the difference. What is the practical difference between all these opinions here? On the top of Ayin Hey, the 3rd line right now. So first, what is the case that is the difference between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi? Amar Rabbi Yechanan, says Rabbi Yechanan, Mitzri Sheni Ike Benayo. If a woman marries a second generation Mitzri, so here there'll be a difference between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi, because according to Tanakama, she married someone that's pasul, so it pasels her. According to Rabbi Yossi, she only becomes pasul to Kohona if the child is pasul to marry into Klal Yisrael, or pasul to marry a Kohen. But if you marry a second generation Mitzri, the 3rd generation Mitzri is mutter. So therefore, she herself also does not become pasul to marry a Kohen. Says the Gemara, both of them learn out this, how we set this rule here from Kohen Gadol to when a Kohen Gadol marries an almana, which is a case of a Isra, where a Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry an almana. The Tanakam is Sovar. So now this case of a Kohen Gadol marrying an almana, so Rashi says there, the pasuk says lo yechalel, that you're not allowed to marry an almana. Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry almana, not to desecrate. But it uses the word yechalel. It doesn't say lo yachel with 1 lamed. It says with 2 lameds. From this you learn out the child that's born becomes a cholol, and the woman herself becomes a cholol. It passes her as well through this marriage to the Kohen Gadol. So now, the Tanakama says, we compare to Kohen Gadol and Almana as follows. Ki Kohen Gadol ba'almana. Ma Kohen Gadol ba'almana, just like when a Kohen Gadol marries an Almana, that it passes her, should be Yaseh ba'aveda. So the relation here is an Aveda, upaisel ba. And that's why it passes her. Av kol should be Yaseh ba'aveda, anytime a woman has any relation with any man, which is an Aveda, paisel. It passes her. It doesn't make a difference. We don't look at the child, whether the child's going to be pasul or not. We look at the bia itself. Rabbi Yossi says, no, ki Kohen Gadol ba'almana, we compare to Kohen Gadol that married an almana. Ma Kohen Gadol ba'almana shezare pasul, just like by Kohen Gadol that marries an almana, what happens? The child becomes pasul. That's what lo yechalel means. That lo yechalel is going on the child. upaisel, and it passes her as well. In that one word, yechalel, the two lamets teach that it passes the child and it passes her itself. Avkol, so too, we always say shazare pasel upaisel only in a case where the woman has a relation with someone that the child born will be pasel. Then I say that it passes her from marrying a kohen or from eating truma. Lafuki mitzri sheni, so therefore this comes to exclude a case of a mitzri, which is a second generation mitzri, shein zare pasel. The child that's born is a third generation mitzri, and that child is not pasel. That child is a regular Yid in Klal Yisrael that can marry even a kohen. Now, Makra, the pasuk says regarding a mitzri, Banim, Ashivodlem Doshlishi, Yavodlem Bekal Hashem. The third generation mitzri is allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael. So therefore, she herself will also be mutter to marry a kohen after the relation with this man. Now, the third opinion in this brayso was Rav Shimon Gamliel Oimer Kol Shatanoise Bitoy. If a woman has a relation with a man and the daughter that's born is still mutter to marry into Klal Yisrael, Atanois Almanosai, she herself. She's an almana from this man. She wants to not go marry a kohen. She can marry a kohen. V'chol she'atanoi says bitoi. Only if you can't marry the daughter, then yatanoi salmanosai. Then you can't marry her. She can't get married to a kohen as well. So what is the chiddush of Rav Shimon Gamliel? My ikke ben Rav Yosi, Rav Shimon Gamliel. What is the difference? Rav Yosi said anytime any child is possible, she can't marry a kohen. Rav Shimon Gamliel says has to be specifically a case that the daughter becomes possible. Says the Gemara, the difference is Ama'ula ger amayni umeyavi ikebenayu. If a woman marries a ger from Ammon and Moav, which is someone which is puzzle, a ger from Ammon and Moav may not marry into Klal Yisrael. If she marries this ger from Ammon and Moav, this will be the difference between Rabbi Yosi and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. According to Rabbi Yosi, she'll be puzzled to marry into Klal Yisrael, because if a son is born from this marriage, a zera, a child which is a son that's born from this marriage, will be puzzled to marry into Klal Yisrael. So she herself will also be puzzled. But according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, what happens if a daughter is born from this marriage? So the Gemara is going to bring soon, we had already before, the Isser of Amen and Moav to marry into Klal Yisrael is only for the Zachar, not for an Akeva, because we darshan Amen and not Amoinis, like by Rus. Rus was a Moavis as well, and she was able to marry into Klal Yisrael. So over here, since the daughter will be mutter, so according to Rav Shimon Gamliel, the mother will also be mutter to marry a kohen. And again, the Gemara says that the source of this, V'shneim lo lamdu ela mekain gadol b'almana. Both of them are learning this out from kohen gadol to almana. When a kohen gadol marries an almana, she now becomes possible to marry a kohen. And the question is, how do we compare to this? The Rabbi Yosi saw what Rabbi Yosi says, Ki kohen gadol b'almana. We compare to kohen gadol b'almana and we say as follows: Ma kohen gadol b'almana. Just like when a kohen gadol marries an almana, shezare pasol upaisel, that the child born is pasol and it pasels the mother as well. Avkol shezare pasol paisel. If this is a marriage between this woman and this man, and there's a child that would be born there that would be pasol, and that includes even Ammon and Moav, because a son that's born is pasol, so too she becomes pasol to marry a kohen. But Rav Shimon Gamliel says, Kohen Gadol Ba'al Maneh, we compare to a Kohen Gadol that married an Almaneh. Ma Kohen Gadol Ba'al Maneh, just like in the case where Kohen Gadol married an Almaneh, Shekol Zare Pasol. It's not only that it's a possibility that a son would be pasol. Whatever child is born, a son or a daughter, any zera would be pasol when a Kohen Gadol marries an Almaneh. Havkal, so too, when do we say that a woman that had a relation with someone which is pasol, it pasels her to marry a kohen, shekol zare pasol. That's only if it's a relation with a man that any kind of child that's born would be pasol. And that's a fila nekevis. That even if the nekeva that's born would also be pasol. La fuki ger amayni moavi. So therefore, Rav Shimon Gamliel says this excludes the case of a woman that married a ger amayni moavi, which was aser, which is pasol. But over there, the nekevis have ksheris lavi b'kol. A daughter that's born and a keva will be kosher to marry into Klal Yisrael. Da'ama Amar, as we learned, the master has said, Amayni v'lei Amaynis. The Isser of a ger of Ammon and Moav to marry into Klal Yisrael is only the Zachar, not Amaynis, Moavi v'lei Moavis. And therefore, the woman that has a relation with this man will also be kosher to marry, still be kosher to marry a kohen. But now in continuation to this, Rav Chiste says, Hakol Maidim, everybody will agree, Bal Monas Isa. If there's a woman that got married to someone that's a suffix puzzle, she got married to a chalal, but it's not definite that he's a chalal. it's a suffix if he's a chalal or not. The term isa, as we saw before in the Gemara, is a term that the Gemara uses when you have a situation of a suffix. It's just like a dough, which is mixed with water, flour, and other ingredients. So here you have a man, a kayin, which is a suffix. He may be a chalal, maybe not. If he's a chalal and a woman marries him, that is, she becomes pasul as well. If he's not a chalal, she doesn't become pasul. So Rav Chisda says that everybody agrees that an almana that marries this man, which is a suffix, shepsula l'kohuna, that she does become pasul to marry a kain. And the Gemara explains, man mekel bahani tanoi, all these opinions that we just brought here regarding a woman marrying someone that's pasul. When does she become pasul to marry a kain? Who was the most lenient opinion? Rav Shimon Gamliel. Shimon Gamliel was the most lenient opinion here. He said even if she marries a ger of Ammon and Moav, she'll still be kosher. The Ka'ama, and what did he say? Kol shatanaisa bitoi, atanaisa almanasai. Only in a case where the daughter that's born will be kosher to marry into Klal Yisrael, then the woman herself could marry a kain. But v'chol she'i atanaisa bitoi. But if you can't marry the daughter, atanaisa almanasai, then the woman herself will also become pasul. Now, what was Rab Shimon Gamliel trying to say with this Lamutei Mai? Which is the case that he's coming to say that over here the daughter is pasul, so therefore she herself also can't marry a kain? Lamutei almanasisa shepsula l'kohuna. In a case where a woman marries a kain that might be a chalal, so because it's a suffix, the child that's born, and that's any child that's born, whether a zachar or a nekeva, will be pasul to marry a kain because this is a suffix min atayre l'hachmer. You have to be machmer. You don't know, the child might be a chalal or a chalala. So just like the child will be pasul, but machmer that the child is pasul, so too this woman herself that married this suffix psul, which is called Esau, will also be pasul. That's what Rav Chisda said. Now the Gemara says there are though Tanoim that argue and will be mate here. La fuke midahani Tanoi. This comes to exclude from the following Tanoim. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, hey, the Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseire, both Rabbi Yeshua that is, and Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseire testified, and we learned this in the Gemara in Ksubis, al almonas Isa, regarding this woman that married this man that was a suffix psul, he might be a chalal, shekesheira lekahona, that she will still be kosher to marry a kayin. What's the reason? My time have a sfek sveke, because this is a sfek sveke lekula. Now, the term sfek sveke here in the Gemara is not the term that it usually means here. So the taich of sfek sveke here means about her there's no suffix. We know that she has a chazaka that she's kosher. She's kosher to marry a kayin. If she's a kehenes, she's kosher to eat troma. Who's the suffix about? The suffix is about the man that she married, whether he's a chalal or not. And now, if she married him, does that passel her? Because there's no suffix in her, the suffix is in the man. And now, that suffix of the man that she married, the question is now whether that suffix will now passel her. So therefore, we put her on her chazak and it doesn't passel her. So the term sfek sveke here in the Gemara means we're taking the suffix of the man and now we want to, because of that, passel her mi-suffix. So because it's not originally any suffix about her, adarabah, she has a chazakeh, so therefore she remains kosher when she married this man. That's the taich of sfek sveke here. Usually sfek sveke means something else. Usually sfek sveke means when you have a double suffix. But over here, according to Rashi at least, that's not the taich of sfek sveke. There's another pshat on this in the Gemara Ksubis Taisus over there learns sfek sveke. It does mean kipshutai, but over here, according to Rashi, that's the taich of sfek sveke. Okay, going back to the Mishnah, vadon bevadon mutter. Said in the Mishnah, this is the opinion of Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar in the Mishnah says, when you have two definite psulim, like a mamzer with a mamzeres, then they're allowed to marry each other. But if you have a suffix mamzer, which is what we spoke about before, a shtuki, which is a suffix mamzer, a child that doesn't know who his father is, that shtuki is not allowed to marry a mamzer because the shtuki may be a kosher yid. So how could he marry a mamzer? That was the opinion of Rabbi Lazar. Samar Rav Yudah Amarav halacha k'Rabbi Eliezer or Rabbi Lazar. He says that we paskin like Rabbi Lazar that if it's a suffix with a vade psul, a vade mamzer, they can't marry each other. Kemrisa kamei Shmuel. So when Rav Yehuda said what Rav paskin that we paskin like Rabbi Lazar in front of Shmuel, Amalis, so Shmuel said, how could you say we paskin like Shmuel? Hillel Omar. Again, sorry. Kamrisa kamei Shmuel. Amali Hillel Shaina. Sorry, I went up a line. Hillel Shaina Asara Yuchsin Alami Bavel. Hillel taught the same halacha as we had in the first Mishnah of this Pedic, which is the Mishnah of Asara Yuchsin Alumi Bavel, the 10 different levels of Yichus of Yidden that came up from Bavel, and the Kula Matarim Lavizem Bizeh. And there the Mishnah said that all the psulim are allowed to marry each other. And the Mishnah there clearly said that includes a mamzer with a shtuki. Even though the mamzer is a definite psul and the shtuki is only a suffix, but the Mishnah clearly said that they are allowed to marry each other. Not like Rabbi Lazar. So, and you're saying that the halacha is like Rabbi Lazar. How would we paskin different than what Hillel taught? Now, Braisa, we always know that the halacha is like Hillel. Okay, so we have a very machlokes of Rav and Shmuel. Rav paskins like Rabbi Lazar, that any time there's a situation of a suffix, that suffix psul cannot marry the mamzer, which is a definite psul. And Shmuel says, no, we paskin like the Mishnah, the first Mishnah, or this Braisa, which is Hillel, that says that even a suffix psul with the vade mamzer could marry each other. Says the Gemara, V'rami de Rava de Rav. We have here a contradiction in Rav's opinion, V'rami de Shmuel de Shmuel. And there's also a contradiction in Shmuel's opinion. The Itmer, because we learned the following machlekes between Rav and Shmuel. Arusa Shebra, we see an Arusa, she's only after the first stage of marriage, she's still living by her father, and we see that she's pregnant. And we ask her who's she pregnant from. So now we have a suffix. She may be pregnant from her husband, but she also may be pregnant from someone else. And she's an Eishes Ish. If she's pregnant from someone else, a child that's born is a mamzer. So this is a case of a suffix mamzer. Rav Amar Havlad mamzer. Rav says we're going to treat this child like a definite mamzer, even though it's really a suffix, but he has the halacha like a definite mamzer. Shmuel Amar Havlad Shtuki. Shmuel says, no, we don't know for sure. This is a case of a Shtuki. Like we don't know who the father is, so it's a suffix mamzer. Now, what's the relevance of this machlokes? So the Gemara explains, Rav Amar Vlad Mamzer, when Rav is saying that the child here that is a mamzer, what that means is umuta b'mamzeres, that the child that's born here will be allowed to marry a mamzeres. What that basically means is, even though this child is a suffix mamzer, still the suffix mamzer will be muta to get married to a definite mamzeres. Shmuel Vlad Shtuki, and Shmuel says that the child is a shtuki. It's a suffix mamzer v'asa b'mamzeres. And what Shmuel meant to say is that this child will be asa to marry a definite mamzeres. So this is a contradiction. Before, Rav said that we paskin like Rabbi Lazar, that a suffix mamzer is not allowed to marry a definite mamzer. Here Rav is saying no, that this Arusa, which is pregnant and we don't know who the child is, we treat it like a definite mamzer and is allowed to marry the mamzeres. And the opposite, Shmuel over here is saying that in this case we have to be machmer, this child that's born cannot marry a mamzeres. And before said Shmuel says you paskin like Hillel that said that a suffix psul and a definite mamzer could marry each other. So the Gemara answers, the first answer, the Gemara says, you're right, Epuch. We have to switch the two opinions here of Rav and Shmuel. Rav and Shmuel are saying the opposite. In this case of the Arusa, and you don't know who the child is, Rav is the one that said that because it's a suffix, the child is a shtuki, and therefore he cannot marry a mamzer. Shmuel is the one that says that we treat this child like a definite mamzer, and he could marry a mamzer. So we have to switch the opinions. The Gemara spells it out itself. Rav Amar Vlad Shtuki. Rav is the one that said that the child is a shtuki and you cannot marry a mamzeres. And Shmuel Amar Vlad Mamzer. Shmuel is the one that said that the child is treated like a definite mamzer and he could marry a mamzeres. So the Gemara asks on this answer, once you're switching their opinion, so then it comes out, Tarti, Lamali. So it comes out that Rav and Shmuel said this halacha twice. They said it once regarding the Mishnayos that we had over here. Do we paskin like Rabbi Lazar? Do we not paskin like Rabbi Lazar? And here they're saying it again regarding the child that's born from this Arusa, which is a suffix mamzer. They're basically saying the same point twice. Says the Gemara, it's tzriche. No, it's necessary to say both cases because it's not exactly the same. If I would only say the halacha over here regarding our Mishnah where we have a shtuki, you don't know who the father is. But here we're not talking about a woman which was an Arusa, which was an Eishes Ish. Here we're talking about a single woman. And she had a relation with someone and we don't know who the child is. We don't know who the father is, so we don't know what the status of the child is. I would say, Rav, only here Rav said that this child that's born is not allowed to marry a mamzer, because if she's a single woman, we're going to assume that the child born is not a mamzer, because most people that she could have had a relation with are kosher for her. But in the case that Rav and Shmuel are arguing over here regarding a woman that's an Arusa, she's already a Eishes Ish, most people that she would have a relation with would be possible for her. It's much more possible that the child that's born here is a mamzer. Maybe in this case, even though it's not for sure that he's a mamzer, still could be that she's pregnant from her husband. But over here, maybe I would say that Rav agrees to Shmuel that the child should be a mamzer, should be treated like a mamzer and could be married a mamzer. On the other hand, the Gemara says, but if we would only say over here, the machlokes regarding this Arusa, I would say, Baha Ka'omar Rav, in this case, Rav would say that the child that's born is going to be treated like a mamzer, mishum the ikele mitli ba'aros, because over here, it's possible, in this case, that is. In this case, Rav says that it's a suffix, that it's a shtuki. Again, the Gemara switched the opinions. The Gemara said that according to Rav, we don't treat the child like a definite mamzer. So I would say that in this case, Rav says you don't treat the child like a definite mamzer. Mishum de'ikila mitli ba'aras. She has a husband. True, she's still living in her father's house, but she is an Eishes Ish. So when we have a suffix who she's pregnant from, there's a very big room to say that it's actually from her husband. So over here, Rav says we have to be concerned that this is a kosher yid. So how could he have a relation with a mamzeres? How could he get married to a mamzeres? When we just see a single woman that had a relation with someone, she has no husband, b'chlal, in such a case, I would say that maybe the person that she had a relation is someone that's puzzle. So therefore, Tzricha has to say in both cases, Rav's opinion, that in both cases, Rav says that there's room to say that the child that's born is kosher, and therefore a suffix mamzer cannot get married to a definite mamzeres. This is all one shot. Now the Gemara says, really, I can tell you that you don't have to switch their opinions, and that is regarding this case that we brought. Arusa Shibra. When you see an Arusa that's pregnant and the child that's born, there's a suffix over here. So Rav said that the child's a mamzer, and Shmuel said the child is a shtuki. So you don't have to switch their opinions to fit with what Rav and Shmuel said, whether you're passing like Rabbi Elazar or not. Why? Because my mamzer the kama Rav. When Rav over here says that the child is a mamzer, lav mutar b'mamzeres. Rav didn't say that the child is a mamzer to teach you that now this mamzer will be mutter with a mamzeres. No, that's not, because Rav holds that a child which is a suffix mamzer is not going to be mutter with a mamzeres, because Rav paskins like Rabbi Elazar. So that's not what Rav meant to say here. Elo, what did he mean to say? The asa b'bas Yisrael. He was trying to say that this suffix mamzer is going to be asa to get married to a yid. He's asa to get married to a mamzeres because he might be kosher. But he's also to get married to a yid because he might be a mamzer. That's all Rav meant to say. Well, machmer on both sides. That's Rabbi Elazar's opinion. Now Shmuel amahavlat shtuki. When Shmuel says that this child is a suffix, so Shmuel also wasn't discussing the status of this child regarding marrying a mamzeres. Regarding marrying a mamzeres, Shmuel's opinion is that the child could marry a mamzeres, because we paskin like the Braisa, like Hillel, that you could marry mamzeres. When Shmuel said that the child is a shtuki, the asa b'bas Yisrael, Shmuel was trying to say that even though this child would be mutter to marry a mamzeres, because any suffix psul is allowed to marry a vadai psul, but on the other hand, though, this child will be asa to marry a bas Yisrael, because he might a suffix psul is asa to marry a bas Yisrael. Okay, so now the Gemara addresses over here. So what are we saying? That Rav and Shmuel, when Rav said the child's a mamzer, and when Shmuel said the child is a shtuki, again, we're talking over here about this woman that's an arusa, that's pregnant, the child that's born is aser. Both Rav and Shmuel came to say the same point, that this child is aser to a bas Yisrael. So the Gemara asks, if that's the case, ihachi, hainu de Rav. So Shmuel and Rav are coming to say the same point? They're both coming to say that this child is aser to marry a Yisrael. So what's the difference between them? Says the Gemara, Shmuel came to add another point here. True, in this detail they're both saying the same thing, but Shmuel came to say that the child is a shtuki. Ella my shtuki. What was Shmuel saying when the child is a shtuki? Shemishat kenoisem midin kohuna. That we're not going to consider this child to be a kayin. So again, the case over here is an arusa. She's pregnant. We don't know who this child is pregnant from. Let's say her husband is a kayin. And she's arguing, she's saying that I'm pregnant from my husband and my child's a kayin. Says Shmuel, no, the child is a shtuki. We can't trust her. We don't know that this child is a kayin. That's what Shmuel came to add when he used the term shtuki. Says the Gemara, pshita. Shmuel doesn't have to say this. It's obvious that we can't consider this child to be a kayin. If Rav came and said that this child that's born from this arusa, we don't know who she had a relation with, and therefore we can't even consider him to be a kosher yid. Midin kahuna mibayeh. Do you have to tell me that the child is not going to be a kayin? Obviously, we're not going to elevate him to a status to be a kayin. So what was Shmuel, again, the question remains, what was Shmuel adding with this term of shtuki here? Says the Gemara, Ela mai shtuki. What does shtuki mean? Shemishat genoisai minichsei aviv. What Shmuel came to add is regarding Yerusha. If he wants to inherit from his father's possessions, we don't allow him to inherit. He comes and argues, I'm a son. We're going to quiet him. He can't claim he's a son because we don't know who the father is. So the Gemara asks him this. That's also obvious. Pshita, it's obvious. Miya dinan avu manu. Do we know who the father is? The halacha always is, you want to come and inherit money, you're going to have to prove that you're a son. If you can't prove it, how should you be allowed to take from these possessions here? And says the Gemara, no, there still would be a chiddush, leitzricha de tafas. The Kiddush would be in a case where he went and grabbed the money before we had a chance. He went and grabbed the money, so now he has it already in his possession. It's in his chazakah. And he's saying, I'm a son, it's mine, it's in my possession, and he wants to keep it. In such a case, I would think that we allow him to keep this money. So that's why the Gemara here, Shmuel, is coming and saying, no, he's a shtuki, and we tell him, we don't know that you're a son, and you can't keep this money. Biba is saying, or the Gemara says another pshat, what Shmuel was adding by saying that this child of the Sarusa is a shtuki. My shtuki, what did Shmuel mean by the term shtuki? He didn't really mean only shtuki, he meant the term that we already had in the Mishnah according to Abba Shalom. Shtuki means baduki. Shtuki means that we quiet down the child, because the child has no idea who his father is, but we go and ask the mother. We're going to ask the mother who the father is. We ask the mother, and she comes and says, that I was married to a kasha, which means basically her husband. This child was born from my husband. And emenes, we trust the mother. That's what Shmuel came to say here. Rav said that the child is puzzled to marry a yid because it's a suffix, and Shmuel came to say, no, we're going to ask the mother and we trust the mother. Says the Gemara, Keman. According to whose opinion is Shmuel saying this, that we trust the mother? Rabbi Gamliel, is he saying this like the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel, which we had already before? And the Gemara is going to bring a Mishnah of Rabbi Gamliel's opinion that we could trust the mother. Shmuel once said this halacha that we paskin like Rabbi Gamliel. So what's the Mishnah? What's the halacha of Rabbi Gamliel? That's not Rabbi Gamliel said. A woman is pregnant. And they asked her, who are you pregnant from? And she answers, I'm pregnant from this man, and he's a kayin, meaning he's a person that's kosher. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer said, we believe her. Rabbi Yeshua, no, we do not trust her. And in that Mishnah, Shmuel said, halacha, Rabbi Gamliel, we paskin like Rabbi Gamliel, that we trust her. So the question of the Gemara is, why would Shmuel have to come and state his opinion over here again regarding this harusa, that we don't know who she had a relation with, to say that that the child is a shtuki, that we trust the mother to say who she had a relation with, if Shmuel already said this, that we paskin like Rabbi Gamliel, that we trust her to say who she had a relation with. So the Gemara answers, no, Shmuel has to say his opinion here again. Because the email also, if it was only that opinion of Rabbi Gamliel, that Mishnah, over there we're talking about a single woman. So most men that you would have a relation with would be people that are kosher for her. There's only a minority of people that would be relatives that would be aser. So there I trust her. It's not only her taina, which she has a roif supporting her taina. Here she's an arusa. She's an eishesish. So most men she would have a relation with, besides her husband. They're all puzzle. I would say that when she says she had a relation with her husband and that's who she's pregnant from, I would say that I don't believe her. That's why Shmuel had to say over here as well that the child is a shtuki, because I do trust the mother. Okay, that's the conclusion of this inyan, this detail of Rabbi Elazar's opinion, whether we paskin like Rabbi Elazar or not. Now the Gemara goes to the next point that Rabbi Elazar said in the Mishnah. The Gemara doesn't quote here the lashon of the Mishnah, but what was the next point that the Mishnah said in the name of Rabbi Elazar? The very end of the Mishnah, and the Mishnah said kuti, that a kuti is not allowed to marry a kutis, even though they come from they're the same, but they're both considered to be a suffix and they can't marry each other. So the Gemara now will explain why is this. So Tanya in a Braisa we learned Rabbi Elazar spells this out. V'chein Rabbi Elazar also said, kuti lo yisa kutis. A kuti is not allowed to marry a kutis. Okay, so again, the kutim are the gedim in the time of the first Beis Hamikdash, and there's a suffix if their gedis was a good gedis or not, or there's a machlokes rather, whether their gedis was because they were afraid of lions that were attacking them. That's what happened then, or no, they were sincere gedim, they're real gedim. So the Gemara asks, my time, what's the reasoning of Rabbi Elazar? If the kutim are good gedim, so they should be allowed to marry each other. If they're not accepted gedim, so they're goyim, so they can marry each other. Why are we saying that a kuti can't marry the kutis? Rav Yosef says, Rav Yosef, asuk ger lachas sadadaitis. We consider them to be like a ger after 10 generations. What happens with a ger after 10 generations? The Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, ger ad asara doiris muta b'mamzeres. The halacha is that a ger, we pass on like the opinion that says that a ger is allowed to marry a mamzer, but that's only up to 10 generations of a ger. He's allowed to marry a mamzeres. Mikan ve'elech, but past 10 generations, asa b'mamzeres, he's not allowed to marry a mamzeres. And the reason is because after 10 generations, it's forgotten that this person comes from Gedim. So everyone looks at this person as a regular yid. And he's marrying a mamzeres. So people are going to come to say that a regular yid is allowed to marry a mamzeres. After 10 generations, you're not allowed. Another opinion says it doesn't matter. It doesn't go by 10, the number 10 generations specifically. When you see that nobody remembers anymore, that this ger comes from Gedim, comes from Goyim, that we're Megayer, so then he can't marry a Mamzeres anymore. So the Gemara is saying over here, similar regarding a Kuti and a Kutis, we don't want a Kuti to marry a Kutis. We don't want anyone to make a mistake that a Yid, maybe people will look at the Kuti as a Yid, and he's marrying a Kutis, which people will look at as a Goy. So therefore, we don't want people to make a mistake that a Yid is allowed to marry this Kutis. Abaye says to Rav Yosef, how can you compare this case to the case of a ger and a mamzeres? Midami hasam ger yashon. Over there, we're talking about a situation where the geros is many generations before and it's forgotten. So therefore, people will come to mamzeres chadasha. This mamzeres, everybody knows is a mamzeres. So there's a big concern. People might think that a Yid is allowed to marry a mamzeres. So Amri Bas Yisrael, who the Kanas of Mamzeres, people will think a Yid is marrying the Mamzeres. Here we're talking about a Kuti and a Kutis. Everybody knows that this is a Kuti and everybody knows that this is a Kutis. So what's the concern? Why would anyone make a mistake if you allow the Kuti to marry a Kutis? So the question remains, what kind of a suffix could there be over here with this Kuti and the Kutis that Rabbi Elazar is saying that they can't marry each other? Ella says the Gemara Ki Yasser Avdimi Amar Rabbi Elazar Savala Amar, he said Rabbi Elazar Savala Kishmuel, that Rabbi Elazar holds like Rabbi Shmuel, that is. Rabbi Elazar holds like Rabbi Shmuel. And Rabbi Shmuel Savar like Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rabbi Akiva. So the Gemara explains what it means now here. Rabbi Elazar Savar like Rabbi Shmuel. The first point is Rabbi Elazar holds like Rabbi Shmuel. The Oma Kutim Gerei Aroy is saying the Kutim are not real Gedim. They only were Megaya out of fear because of the lions that attacked them. So really the Kutim are Goyim. That's one point. Another point is that Rabbi Shmuel Savala Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rabbi Akiva. What is Rabbi Akiva's opinion? This is the basis of Rabbi Akiva's opinion is anytime you have a relation with someone that there's an Isser of Alav, the child that's born is a Mamzer. The Amma, and therefore Rabbi Akiva says, Oivikechavim ve'eved habal bas Yisrael, and Oivikechavim or an Eved that got married to a Yid, Havlad Mamzer. The child that's born is going to be a Yid, but the child's going to be a Mamzer. And so therefore over here, the concern over here is that when you have a Kuti and a Kutis, the Kuti might be a full guy because Geirei Aroyis, their Geiris was not a good Geiris, so the Kuti is a guy. The Kutis though, it could be that the father is a guy, but the mother was a Yid. And in such a case, according to Rabbi Akiva, what happens is the child is going to be a Yid. It's a Mamzer, but a Yid. The Yichus does not go after the father. If you don't learn like Rabbi Akiva, so then if they get married to each other, so then the child is, the Yichus goes after the father and the child's not a Yid B'chlal. So then there would be no issue of the Kuti marrying the Kutis. But according to Rabbi Akiva, there's a lav of Leitis Chatan, but you're not allowed to marry. And what happens is the child that's born is a Yid, but is a Mamzer. So therefore, when a Kuti marries a Kutis, there's going to be a suffix here. Could be you're marrying a Kutis that's a guy like you, this Kutis. This Kuti and the Kutis are both Goyim. What could be this Kutis, his mother was a Yid, and only the father was a Kuti. And therefore, it's a Kuti marrying a Yid. That's why Rabbi Elazar says there's a suffix here, and they can't marry each other. But the Gemara asks on one detail of this answer. What did we say over here? That Rabbi Elazar follows Rabbi Shmuel's opinion, and Rabbi Shmuel also agrees to what Rabbi Akiva said, that anytime you have an Isalav, and in this case, it's the Isser of a Yid marrying a guy, the child that's born could be a Yid, and the child will be a Mamzer. But the Gemara asks on that, Rabbi Shmuel ka Rabbi Akiva. Could you say that Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Yechanan Mishum Rabbi Shmuel. But Rabbi Yechanan said a different statement in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, Minayin loy v'kechavim ve'eved shabal a-kehenes. How do I know that a kehenes that had a relation with a guy, or Val Alaviyah, Val Bas Yisrael, or a Levi or a Bas Yisrael had a relation with a guy, Shepaslua. How do I know that this passes them from a Kayin? Shenema, because the pasuk says, Bas Kayin, Kisiye Almana Ugrusha, that a Bas Kayin that was married, and then she became her husband died, or she got divorced. V'zera Einla, she has no children. What happens then? If she's a Kehenes, she can go back to eat Truma. Or she can still marry a Kayin. If she's an Almana, she can still go marry a Kayin. Because she has no children from this marriage. As long as she had no children from that marriage, she can go back and marry a Kayin. So what did Rabbi Shmuel darshan from this pasuk? Mi sheyeshloi almanos v'geidushin. We're talking over here about a situation where she married another Yid. Where when she marries another Yid, the marriage takes effect. and the only time the marriage ends is either if her husband dies or her husband divorces her. But if this woman, whether she's a Kehenes, a Levia, Yisraelis, if she has a relation with a guy, she gets married to a guy, over there the marriage does not take effect at all. There is no marriage, and there is no concept of her being an almana or a grusha. Over here, in such a case, she's going to become pasul to kahuna, she's going to become pasul of eating truma. That was the drash of Rabbi Shmuel. Now, the Isal Gedaitach Savalok Rabbi Kiva, if you can say that Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rabbi Kiva, that what happens when a Jewish woman marries a guy, so that the marriage does take effect, and the child that's born is a mamzer. Hash the mamzer have, if the child that's born is a mamzer, Mifsal bibiyasai bibiya mibaya. Is it necessary to say that she will now herself, this woman herself, will become pasul to a kain? That's pashut. If the child is a mamzer, if a woman has a relation with someone that the child is a mamzer, for sure she can't get married to a kain. So it wouldn't be necessary for Rabbi Shmuel to say this drasha. The fact that Rabbi Shmuel says this drasha means Rabbi Shmuel does not hold like Rabbi Kiva that we quoted before. That Rabbi Kiva says that the child that's born will be a Yisrael and a mamzer. So therefore, the Gemara over here switches the answer that we said before, just one detail. Ella Rabbi Lazar, the opinion of Rabbi Lazar, that says that there's a concern of a kuti marrying a kutis. Savalak Rabbi Shmuel. So Rabbi Lazar agrees to Rabbi Shmuel that says that who are kutim? Kutim ageri arayis. They're not real gerim. The Omar kutim ageri arayis. And v'savalak Rabbi Kiva, he also holds like Rabbi Kiva, the Omar Ovid Kechavim ve'Eved Abal Bas Yisrael Avlad Mamzer, that a guy that has a relation with a woman, with a Yiddish woman, that the child is a Yid and the child is a Mamzer. So here the Gemara is saying it's not that Rabbi Shmuel holds this. Rabbi Shmuel doesn't hold this. Rabbi Lazar in one detail holds like Rabbi Shmuel, and in another detail he holds like Rabbi Kiva. So therefore it comes out that when a kuti marries a kutis, this kutis that you're marrying may be a guy or may be a Yid. This is a suffix. So therefore Rabbi Lazar says a kuti can't marry a kutis. Okay, but the Gemara asks on this pshat as well. V'omer Rabbi Lazar, but Rabbi Lazar, Oh, sorry, one line up. Okay, I'm sorry. Fragt the Gemara, Umi Savala Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Kiva. But can you say that Rabbi Lazar holds like Rabbi Kiva that any time you have a marriage which is an isser of a lav, including a Yiddish woman that marries a guy which is an isser of a lav like the Schattenbaum, that what happens is the child is a mamzer. Rabbi Lazar that is cannot hold like Rabbi Kiva. Why? Because Rabbi Lazar said the following. Beishamai and Beis Hillel are arguing regarding a co-wife. What's the halacha of a co-wife? This is talking about the mitzvah of yibum. The mitzvah of yibum is when a person dies without children, so the brother has to marry this wife. Now, what happens if this wife is a issa erve to the brother? Then there is no mitzvah of yibum. Not only is there no mitzvah of yibum, it's actually going to be a issa kodesh to marry your brother's wife. Eishes och. A brother's wife is the Issa Kodesh. Now, the question is, what's with the co-wife? This wife is Taka Issa Erve. Does that also ask the co-wife to marry now the brother? So there's a machlokes about this between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in the Mishnah there in Yevamis. Beis Shammai says that the co-wife still has a mitzvah of Yibum. On the other hand, Beis Hillel says no. If the first wife has no mitzvah of Yibum, then the second wife doesn't have a mitzvah of Yibum either. Not only does the second wife not have a mitzvah of Yibum, it's actually a Issa Kodesh of Eishes Ach. So now, that's the machlokes that they argue regarding tzaris. But not. Nevertheless, the Rabbi Lazar said, Maidim she'ein mamzer elo mimi she'isurei erve v'onish kodesh. They both will agree, Beis Hillel will agree, Beis Shammai will agree, that which child that's born is going to be a mamzer? Only a child that's born from an einish kodesh. And therefore what that would mean is that according to Beis Hillel, if you're going to follow Beis Shammai's opinion, and this tzara, this co-wife, is going to marry the brother, that's a Issa Kodesh. So the child will be a mamzer. But according to, if you're going to do what Beis Shammai, but if you're going to do what Beis Hillel said, which is that this tzara is not chayiv in Yibum, and this tzara is going to go and get married to someone else, according to Beis Shammai, you're only over in a Issa Lav, Leisia Eishes Ameisa Chutza. So the child that's going to be born from that is not going to be a mamzer, because it's only Issa of a Lav. So here, what did Rabbi Lazar here clearly say? Rabbi Lazar said that there's no mamzer from an Issa Lav. So how can we say that the opinion of Rabbi Lazar here in the Mishnah that a kuti cannot marry a kutis is because there's a suffix that maybe this kutis, maybe the father of the kutis is a guy, but maybe the mother of the kutis is a yid, and therefore the child that's born is going to be a mamzer. That's only according to Rabbi Akiva's opinion. That says that the child that's born from such a marriage is a yid and is a mamzer. But Rabbi Elazar here clearly disagrees with Rabbi Akiva that says that the child that's born from such a marriage is going to be a mamzer. Okay, so the Gemara here is going to give another pshat. This pshat goes all the way down basically to the Mishnah on the next Amud. We'll learn the Mitzvah tomorrow.